Good morning, and especially to those who are online. It's lovely to have you with us. It's nice to have you in the service too as well. As Dave said, we are concluding our series on 1 Thessalonians, the book of 1 Thessalonians today, and we're going to be looking at chapter 5. But just very quickly, I want to give you a quick recap of the overarching feel and story of this book. We find Paul and Silas, two of the most prolific preachers in the early church, come to Thessalonica and begin to preach in the synagogue. They do this for about a month, and the response is really significant, miraculous even. There's Jews and Gentiles, men and women who come to know who Jesus Christ is through their teaching. But throughout this time, there's trouble brewing in the city. You see, the Jews, the established, religion at the time, they felt that this new preaching about Jesus and how he'd raised from the dead and that he was God, they felt that this was blasphemous. And so they went to the Roman authorities who were ruling the empire at the time, and they said, hey, look, you've got to watch out for these Christians because they're claiming that Jesus is king instead of Caesar. And so this oppression breaks out against this very young church. And it's so significant that Paul and Silas actually have to flee. They have to leave the city completely after just a month of preaching. You can imagine Paul, his original excitement about this miraculous turnaround that's happened in this city, this revival even, and then having to leave so soon after. And he's very concerned that this spark of faith that burst forth in this city is going to get extinguished as quickly as it started. And so he sent his friend Timothy. The authorities wouldn't have known Timothy at the time, and so he could come into the city and get an idea of what was going on. Paul is expecting to hear back from him that everything is, bad, everything is not going well, but instead Timothy comes back and says, things are going pretty good. Like our fellow Christians in Thessalonica, they are enduring, even though there's this great persecution there. And so the book of 1 Thessalonians then is great for us to consider how do we express and live out our faith in uncertain times. Now, I don't know about you and whether you feel like right now is uncertain times. For some people, yeah, absolutely. There might be things going on in their life. Perhaps 2020 as, a year has been a bit uncertain for you. Wherever you are, there is something for us in this book for us to learn from. Chapter 5, where we're in this morning, especially looks at this idea of hope. Our hope that Jesus is going to return, and in the return of Jesus, all things that are uncertain would be put to rights. Now, it seems that somehow, probably through Timothy in his report, it seems that the Thessalonians have asked Paul a specific question. That question is, when is Jesus coming back? I'm sure you can understand that question. Like if you're in the middle of persecution and you've been told that when Jesus comes back and puts everything to right, that oppression will be done, it makes a lot of sense for them to be asking, when's Jesus going to come back? I wonder if you've ever thought about that question as well. Whether if we knew when Jesus was coming back, would we bother with, buying the new house or going for a new job or trying to ace that next test? Probably not. We're like, oh, Jesus come back tomorrow. I can just let that one lie. I'll just chill out here until that happens. But not only that, knowing when Jesus come back, I reckon that would affect us personally as well, because if I knew Jesus was coming back, well, at least for that fortnight in the lead up, I'd be on my best behavior. It's kind of like when you're young, like when you're a teenager and your parents leave you home alone for like a week for the first time. It's like they're coming back on Friday, and so on Monday to Thursday, there's like no rules whatsoever. Everybody just lives like an absolute slob, but then come Friday afternoon, everybody's working really hard to like wash up the dishes and clean up the rooms and patch the holes in the walls. I'm from a family of just boys, so patching holes in the walls was something we had to do, when parents were coming back from a trip. When my kids are old enough, I'm going to say that I'm coming back on Friday, but then pop in on Thursday just to see how they really live, I want you to keep all of that in mind while we read this passage this morning, that Paul is addressing this question of when Jesus will return, and I want you to remember this overarching theme of the book. You know, we could sum it up in 3 words, that Paul wants them to have faith, to live with hope of Jesus' coming return, and to love deeply the people around them. In Thessalonians 1-3, Paul is just praising them for how they're enduring in their faith, hope, and love in difficult circumstances. And then chapter 4 and 5, which we looked at yesterday and today, is all about how Paul is asking them to go further in these same 3 aspects of their faith. So we're going to read from chapter 5, from verse 1 now. It'll be up on the screen if you want to read along with me, or in your Bibles, which would be even better. Verse 1. Now, brothers and sisters, about times and dates we do not need to write to you, for we know very well that the day of the Lord will be like a thief in the night. While people are saying peace and safety, destruction will come on them suddenly as labor pains on a pregnant woman, and they will not escape. But you, brothers and sisters, you're not in the darkness so that the day would surprise you like a thief. You are all children of the light and children of the day. We do not belong to the night or the darkness, so then let us not be like the others who are asleep, but let us be awake and sober. For those who sleep, sleep at night, and those who get drunk at night. But since we belong to the day, let's be sober, putting on faith and love as a breastplate, and hope as a helmet, and the hope of salvation as a helmet. For God did not appoint us to suffer wrath, but to receive salvation through our Lord Jesus Christ. He died for us, so that whether we are awake or asleep, we may live together with him. Therefore, encourage one another and build each other up, just as in fact you're doing. You'll notice straight away that this passage is full of imagery. When I was in school, by far my worst subject was English. And so it's actually pretty surprising that my job now involves a lot of reading texts and interpreting them and writing things and talking, because I sucked at it as a kid. Maybe you still think I suck at it. I'm sorry for you if that's the case. You've got to sit with me for another 20 minutes, okay? Now, if you're like me, and that symbolism, that imagery, understanding what the director meant when he put that candle in the window and how that represents their eternal flame of love, if that's difficult for you, then this passage is a bit of a nightmare. But stick with me as we do this, because we're going to get really quite deep into this and to understand what Paul is saying with all this imagery. And if you stick with me to the end, I'm sure you'll get a good idea about it. So let's just go back to verse 1 and 2 very quickly. We'll start looking at the first bits of imagery that's in this. It says this: Now, brothers and sisters, about times and dates we do not need to write to you, for you know very well that the day of the Lord will come like a thief in the night. The first thing to notice is that Paul is not going to answer their question. In fact, he can't answer their question about when Jesus is going to come back. Jesus himself actually says in the Gospels that he doesn't know the time, only the Father knows. And so Paul's response is, we don't need to write to you about this. You know that this is the case. Jesus doesn't know. I don't know. You don't get to know either. But this first bit of imagery is interesting. The day of the Lord will come like a thief in the night. We need to talk about what the day of the Lord is very quickly. This means the second coming of Jesus, the end of the age that we live in now, where Jesus will come to judge the living and the dead, and each person will receive either deliverance or be caught up in God's wrath as he casts out the evil from his kingdom. And so Paul says that this event will come like a thief in the night. A thief doesn't give you any warning when they come. It would be a pretty bad thief if he told you when he's going to come. Paul is trying to say that this is going to be unexpected. This is going to be sudden. That when the day of the Lord comes, for those who are not on the lookout, who are not wary, who are not awake, that this is going to be sudden and unexpected. But Paul jumps straight to another image, and it's very confusing to me, especially in my initial reading, because it seems a little bit different. He says this: while people are saying peace and safety, destruction will come on them suddenly as labor pains on a pregnant woman, and they will not escape. And I get, even though I haven't been through labor, I get that it is still sudden, okay? I've been there, I've seen it happen with my wife. It's like everything's fine, and then all of a sudden, oh, ow. But, yeah, that's all it was. It's just a little ow. Is that right? But I would hesitate to say that it's unexpected, right? Like a thief in the night, there's no warning when that happens. But the onset of labor, like there's kind of 9 months of warning that kind of take place before that moment. To say that it's unexpected is not really congruent with his previous image. So what is Paul trying to do here? I think he's trying to give us a whole picture, that there's no perfect symbol to it. So he's trying to combine elements from both. He's saying that Jesus' return is going to be like a thief in the night. It's going to be sudden. But like labor pains for a pregnant woman, it's going to be unavoidable. It's going to happen. It is coming. We know it's coming. Certain things are making it clear that it's coming. And when it does come, it's unavoidable. There's no escaping it. You might be tempted. I certainly have been. I'm going to share a story a little bit later about how I've been tempted to think about this time in a different way. You know, so you might be tempted as well to kind of look at this and go, hey, this book was written 2,000 years ago. And they were told way back then, these followers of Jesus, that day of the Lord, the end time, is going to come suddenly and unexpected, and they need to be on the lookout. They need to be waiting for it, ever watchful, ever expectant. And yet it's been 2,000 years. You know, that I understand that temptation, but the wise person reads this and understands that those 2,000 years just brings us closer to the inevitable. Do you understand what I'm saying here? It just brings us closer. If it was true for them now, and and it absolutely was, it is only more true for us now. Every day we get closer to that event, whenever it will be. And we need to read this with a wise reaction, and recognize that we must be alert and awake and paying attention and expectant of this day. So that wasn't too hard to get through the first two symbols, so let's keep going. Verse 4, but you, brothers and sisters, are not in darkness, so that this day should be a surprise to you. You are children of the light and children of the day. We do not belong to the night or the darkness, so let us not be like others who are asleep, but let us be awake and sober. For those who sleep, sleep at night. Those who get drunk of night. But since we belong to the day, let us be sober, putting on faith and love as a breastplate, and the hope of salvation as a helmet. So we have a whole bunch of new symbols in this, and we're going to touch lightly on a few of them. We've got children of the day or the light, belonging to the night or the darkness, being asleep and drunk at night. That's more than just, Paul saying we need to be sober. This is not a specific instruction about a specific way of living. This is a broad idea that we're going to look at. And of course, being awake and sober. These are definitely images with deeper meaning. Paul seems to be speaking about the different states that people will be in when the day of the Lord arrives. When that day comes, there will be children of the light who are awake and sober and who have put on faith, hope, and love. Those are our major themes of this book of 1 Thessalonians again. To these people, Jesus' return will be sudden and it will be unavoidable, but it won't be a surprise. Paul says that in verse 4. And so, of course, if that's one state of people, there is another state of person at the other side of the spectrum. That other state that people might be in when Jesus returns is, as using Paul's words, asleep or drunk. Paul infers that these people belong to the night and the darkness. To them, the return of Jesus will be sudden, unavoidable, and a complete surprise. So what does it mean to be somebody who belongs to the darkness or who belongs to the light? I'll get to that in a minute. I was in my office last night as I was putting the final touches on this message, and the church is a really strange place to be in at night. Like, there's always weird things happening around here. Like, it's such a dark block of land, and we're in the middle of suburbia, and people use it as like a thoroughfare to come in and out. And so often when I'm here at night, it's just a little bit creepy. And last night, it was especially bad because for whatever reason, this group of like 6 young teenage girls were just running amok. They were just doing, I don't know what they were doing. I don't know how they were having fun, but it was loud. And there were screams and all sorts of stuff and bangs and I just went, this is just bad. And so I kept on going, do I go out and say something and everything like that? But I don't want to be that weird old man who goes up to a bunch of teenage girls and tells them to, it just feels weird. Eventually, one of them actually came to my window and asked me a whole bunch of questions about whether Christians celebrate Halloween and does God love homosexuals and all sorts of stuff. It was a pretty in-depth conversation, to be honest. She ended up being quite nice. And as she was going, I said to her, hey, just be careful. You guys, I'm sure you're being good, but you're being super loud, and I'm concerned for you. Like, if you keep on, running amok and being super loud, someone's going to call the cops. And she scoffs and she walks away. And then 20 minutes later, the cops come and they scatter, and it wasn't me. Like, I didn't call them, okay? I felt like she listened to me and she was being a little bit careful, but somebody did, and the cops came and they were super surprised and arguing and everything like that. And it's like, I was thinking, this is a perfect story for my sermon because I predicted it. You know what I mean? Like, I predicted it. I was there and I was saying this would happen. It was definitely sudden, but it wasn't a surprise to me, Even though I warned one of them that it would happen, even though I said to her face, it's dark, it's late, if you're making all this noise, this is what's going to happen. This is the inevitable result. It was still an immense surprise to her. And I think that's very similar to what Paul's trying to say in this situation. We need to get into our heads these images that Paul has given to us, that we are to be children of the light who are expectant of the obvious end of everything that's happening. We have a just God who is going to bring an end to the evil. We can expect it. We know that. We can go and let other people know that, but they might not listen to us either. And now, we actually see this day and night analogy elsewhere in the Bible. It's pretty subtle, I'll admit that, but it seems to be referring to what, biblically speaking, the 2 ages that we potentially live in. The Bible talks about a present age and an age to come. And these present day and age to come sometimes have the image of a night and a day attached to them. The present age is like a long night, but with any night, there is a moment, an event that's going to trigger the sun to rise and a new day to dawn. And so the question is, if we do have this present age and this age to come, which is like a night and a day, what is the event that triggers the change? What is the moment that divides the present age and the age to come, the night and the day? Well, certainly the Old Testament writers have an answer for this. They were always expectant that a Messiah was going to come. And so we might say, okay, well, the birth of Jesus is obviously the coming of the Messiah. So maybe the birth of Jesus is what ushers in that dawn. And we have passages like John 1 that really back this up, that says that Jesus is like the light that comes into the world, and he's going to be a light that's going to shine in the darkness, and the darkness will not overcome it. It fits perfectly into this image of night and a new day dawning. But then Jesus, throughout his ministry, occasionally says that we are living in the present age. So this is when Jesus is alive after his birth. He says there is a present age, but there is an age to come. Even after Jesus' death and resurrection, which might be the other option for an event that splits the present age and the age to come, The New Testament writers, Paul himself talks about a present evil age and a future age to come. Is the age to come triggered by the second coming of Jesus then? Well, 1 Thessalonians 5 seems to indicate that both are true. That the Thessalonians and us, we actually live in both ages, the present age and the age to come, the night and the day. That Jesus has launched his kingdom here on earth, that the new age has arrived, the light has come, and we can live in it awake and sober. That we can be faithful, we can have hope, we can have love. That's what awake and sober means, expectant that Jesus is coming back. But at the same time, the present age clearly hasn't passed. The kingdom of darkness still rules. It is one of the options for where we can belong as people, the present age, the age to come, day or night. So it is simultaneously day and night. We, all Christians, are called to live as children of the light in this new kingdom that is here and now, but not in its fullness. We are called to live in the day, even though it seems incredibly dark. Tonight, we have two young men getting baptised. I really hope you come and celebrate with Carl and with Lockie. Baptisms are one of the most exciting things that happen in our church, in every church. And it's a great picture of what we're talking about here. In Romans 6, Paul explains what baptism is, and he says that as we are lowered into the water, it's like we're joining with Jesus in his death and his burial. And then as we come up out of the water, we're raised like Christ to new life. Now, as a younger Christian, I lived as though when I put my faith in God, nothing really changed. But when I died, I would start my eternal life, my new life. That I made a decision that had an effect on the future, but not so much on the present. Well, Paul says that's not the way that it works. Paul says that as you are baptized, and biblically we see conversion and baptism as really the same event. And so as we come to faith in Jesus, the reality is that we pass from death into life in that moment. Now, of course, we're still going to physically die. It's sort of like we have a foot in both worlds. But Paul is clear, our eternal life starts at that moment. That, yeah, we will physically die, but that only ushers us into a new creation. For Christians, we have to get this idea in our head and live them out that our eternal life has already started. Whatever limitations remain with us will be shaken off when that time is right. But that new age has already come. The light is on the horizon. The dawn is here. It might still be dark out, but it's time for us to wake up and sober up and open the curtains and let the light in. Do that, and Christ's return will not be a surprise to you. Let's continue in verse 9. It says this, "For God did not appoint us to suffer wrath, but to receive salvation through our Lord Jesus Christ. He died for us, so that whether we are awake or asleep, we may live together with him. Therefore, encourage one another and build each other up, just as in fact you're doing." Let me just really quickly address this so it's not confusing. We can see Paul once again, he uses that symbol of awake and asleep, but in a different context. He talks about being awake as being a child of the light in the passage before, and being asleep as being belonging to the darkness. But in this particular case, he's flipped that image on us, and now being awake is just being alive, and being asleep means already passing. And so when Paul is saying this, he's saying that whether you're alive or you're asleep, you are still, whether you're alive or dead, everybody gets included in this. Everybody who believes in Christ as their Saviour may live together with him. But the bigger idea of this passage is to say that the day of the Lord will be sudden and unavoidable, but for the children of the light, it won't be a surprise. Because we are appointed to receive salvation. That is God's plan for us. That's our sure hope. Our hope is not in that we are going to somehow be morally pure enough to be acceptable by God. It's not in that we have perfected our faith somehow, or we have loved each other to an acceptable level. We should be working on those things, but it is in Jesus, in the cross, in the resurrection, that our future hope is secure. So whether we live to see Jesus' return, or whether we die while we're waiting expectantly, whether we are rescued from our suffering, or whether God allows us to endure it, we will live with him in the fullness of the coming age when Jesus rules over all of creation. So as we wrap up this series, what are we to do in light of 1 Thessalonians 5 and this entire book? How do we live? How are we meant to live in uncertain times? Well, in classic Paul style, there's essentially two takeaways I'd love to leave you with. And I'm going to warn you and say that these things, they kind of feel contradictory. They kind of feel like they go up against each other. And it really, together, they form one of the key tensions about what it is to be a Christian. On the one hand, we are called to live out our faith. We are called to a morally pure life, as David Elvery was preaching last week. We are called to love those around us deeply. We're called to live as children of the light, even while the kingdom of darkness still reigns. Paul himself gives a better overview of this than I could possibly do. It's the rest of this chapter. We're just going to read it now from verse 12. It says this: "Now we ask you, brothers and sisters, to acknowledge those who work hard among you, who care for you in the Lord, and who admonish you. Hold them in the highest regard, in love because of their work. Live in peace with each other. And we urge you, brothers and sisters, warn those who are idle and disruptive, encourage the disheartened, help the weak, be patient with everybody. Make sure no one pays back wrong for wrong, but always strive to do what is good for each other and for everyone else. Rejoice always, pray continually, give thanks in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus. Do not quench the Spirit. Do not treat prophecies with contempt, but test them all and hold on to what is good and reject every kind of evil." We are called to do this and more. We're called to live out our faith boldly, to live a life that God looks down upon and is pleased with. But at the same time, our future hope does not rest in achieving a passable level of goodness, but in fact, it rests in the fact that Christ achieved complete fullness, righteousness, and good standing with God. And Paul makes that clear in the very next verse. This is why Paul is very clearly showing us that these are the two things that we must get a hold of and understand. It says this in verse 23: "May God himself, the God of peace, sanctify you through and through. May your whole spirit, soul, and body be kept blameless at the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ. The one who calls you is faithful, and he will do it." The one who calls you is faithful. He will do it. What's Paul saying here? He's saying even in our unfaithfulness, even in our fallenness and brokenness, it is Christ's faithfulness that stands in the gap for us. What we couldn't do, Christ is faithful and can do. Isn't that good news? I reckon that we should commit ourselves to trying our hardest to live up to Paul's call to the Thessalonians. It is a call to us as well, to have great faith and to express that faith by living a morally pure life. Let me say it clearly, this is what the Bible is calling us to live a morally pure life, to cast off the sexual sin, the drunkenness, the lies, the deceit, the gossip. Paul says there's no place for that in our life. He says that it's time for us to love others with an incredible depth. Do not sit idly back and let others take care of you, but work hard, it says in 1 Thessalonians 4, so that your needs will be covered, and in your excess you will be able to help for the needs of others. That's how we show our love. And also to have an incredible hope in the future. And this is where this main idea comes in. That our actual hope isn't in that what we achieve, it is in what Christ has achieved for us. We have been called for the sake of salvation. It is not God's desire for us to be under wrath, but to receive salvation. And it is through his faithfulness that it can be done in our lives. Let me pray for you. Heavenly Father, we want to rest in that gospel truth right now, that although you are calling us to live a certain way, that you have shown us the example in Jesus Christ, that you have gone to incredible lengths to be able to say to us with complete surety that we are destined for salvation, not your wrath. Lord God, we want to be children of the light. We want to live up to what you have done. And one of the things that children of the light do is to go out into the darkness and to try and bring those who don't know you into the light. Lord God, would you help us to do that via our faith, our love, and our hope? May it be a shining light on a hill that people are attracted to. May in a spiritual way the teenage girls or whoever come knocking on our windows and saying, what's it like in there? What's it like in the light? Lord God, we want to see this world transformed for your gospel and for your glory. We don't want to see anybody destined for your wrath. And we know that your gospel is broad enough and big enough for all of humanity. And so we ask, Lord God, that you would empower us with the gifts we need, with the passion we require to go out to the darkness, to live in these uncertain times with faith, love, and hope, and see your kingdom come, your kingdom of light spread out across the darkness so that nothing will overcome it. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.